Hello YouTube, it's Simon here with Hobbies Man once again, and today we're going to be doing another manga review. Today we're going to be looking at Chain Soldier, volumes 1 and 2, and actually not really 1 and 2, mostly just volume 1 with 1 or 2 chapters of volume 2, because we are going to be covering the introductory arc of the manga, which is the first 8 chapters. And technically speaking, I don't know that that's actually the name of this arc, but usually the first arc is usually called the intro arc, or the prologue arc, or whatever you want to call it, but it is that itself, right? It's the first 8 chapters, and usually you have to wait a long time before you can figure out what the arcs are. But I think in this case it's really easy to tell, because the mangaka tells you, hey, with this storyline we're starting a new arc at the end of the second volume, when he explains stuff in his author's notes, right? So I can't remember exactly where it was. I think let's see. Yeah, so it says here, chapter 9. Seeing as a squad stands to reason that there's other squads, and I really wanted to show them as soon as I could, so I had the 6th squad make their appearance. Kyoka is pretty materialistically minded, so I gave Tenka more of a cool, collected older woman vibe, and while involving the other squad, an arc starring Himari begins. So chapter 9 is the start of the second arc of the story, and so that's where I got my chapter divisions, right? So yeah, Chain Soldier, volumes 1 and 2, written by Takahiro and drawn by Takahiro as well. Actually, wait, never mind. Sorry, it's not drawn by Takahiro. It's drawn by Yohei Takemura, who I can't remember from what I know him, but I'm pretty sure I've seen his art style before, and it's actually a really good art style. I quite like it. So yeah, the demographic here is shonen, although the American labeling calls it mature, and I definitely understand why. So be aware of that. This is technically for teenagers, but by American standards, it's definitely for adults. So yeah, the genres here are action and dark fantasy, and that's really all there is to it. I think there's some other elements of other things that you could kind of say, but I don't really think that they're meaningful enough to mention. So yeah, and there is an adaptation supposed to be coming out for this, but I don't know actually when it will. I think it's sometime in 2023. So yeah, now the premise here is that there's this portal to another dimension. It opens, it gives out these fruits called peaches, and if a woman eats it, she gains a power. If a man eats it, nothing happens. And so this, actual difference in power affected the societal structure of Japan and of the world, although I think mostly just Japan. And so there's this imbalance, and we follow a male character called Yuki as he ends up in Mato, this dimension that opened up, and is saved by Kyoka, this character right here, and becomes her slave. Now, I wouldn't really necessarily say he is actually a slave, but for the sake of the eroticism that the story wants to convey, that is a good title for it. He's more like her servant, which, I guess there's a very small semantic difference between those two words, but it is what it is. If you read this, or if you know a little bit about this, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, let me show you the interior of this book really quickly. So here's the front, here's the cover, the spine, here's the back. It has a color page, which is nice. Definitely lives up to its $13 price tag for a normal Tankobon, and then no more color pages after that. Here we go. This is Shu, I think, Shu-chan, I think is her name. Here's the side, here's the back. I'm not a huge fan of white spines on manga, but it is what it is. Even though I don't like them, most manga are like that, so can't really help it. So yeah, now the plot line here is basically pretty simple. Women have powers, like I said, and the dimension opens up to Yuki. He ends up there after we learn that he's a bit of a loser, and he lost his sister, and he wanted to be a hero, but he doesn't have the ability to gain powers because he's a man. So he can't do what he wants to do. So he ends up on Mato, or in Mato, and is saved by Kyoka after he is almost attacked by these things called Shuki, which are the monsters that live in Mato. And he's saved by Kyoka, who's the leader of the 7th Squad of the Demon Defense Force, I think is what it's called. And she makes him her slave with her powers, because her powers basically force her to subjugate another creature to her will and use and then empower them. And then because she is taking them for herself, she has to repay them in some fashion. And that's where the funky, ecchi kind of part of the story comes up, relating specifically to Yuki, right? So she takes him as her slave, she gives him powers, and he becomes this special kind of like monster form. He kind of looks like, he's basically a werewolf, but like funky looking. Like he's not like a hairy beast. He's more of a like a reptile, if that makes sense. So he gets this special form, and Yuki is now part of Squad 7, and he actually is their housekeeper and cleaner, and he's also Ryoka's partner. Kyoka's partner, sorry. And, because she turned him into a slave, and she used him to power up her powers, she has to provide him with some service back, right? And of course, because Yuki is a teenage boy, most of this happens to be ecchi or sexual in nature, and that's where the erotic aspect of the story comes in. So yeah, so hijinks ensue with Shuzu, who is the other one of the other female characters, because she's like, well, this guy is our boss's slave, but I want a slave too. So she blackmails him into being her slave as well. And in this case, it is more of a like actual slave thing. Like with Kyoka, I think he's more of a partner. He kind of has a good relationship with her beyond the fact that they have to do the funky like ecchi stuff, right? So but with Shuzu, it is a bit more of a like messed up kind of relationship. So it is what it is. And then Yuki and Kyoka go back to the real world, to Earth, for some exposition about her backstory and her personal situation. And then this humanoid Shuki appears, this humanoid monster appears back on Mato, and they recall Kyoka and Yuki, and so they have to go battle it. And it turns out that it might be Yuki's lost sister, and then the whole squad battles her, but it doesn't really do much. She can't really lose, and then Kyoka loses are cool because Yuki's potential sister also has with her the Shuki that destroyed Kyoka's village, the reason why she is in the defense force at all. And so she loses her cool, and she almost ends up losing her squad to the Shuki, but eventually something happens, and the humanoid monster decides to retreat, and so the 7th Squad reports the issue to headquarters, and that leads into the next arc when 6th Squad ends up showing up, and we get to see that they have some beef with Himari, another one of the characters that are part of the system. So yeah, that's really it for the plot line. It's pretty simple. It's mostly just, hey, here's some exposition, here's a battle, here's some exposition, here's some ecchi hijinks, and then a little bit more exposition before the final battle of the arc, leading into the next one. So there's not really too much going on here, but it is really enjoyable. It's really fun. And honestly, the best part is really the chapter notes at the end of the book, where the manga kind of explains like, hey, this is what I wanted to do with this chapter. The story is about this, and so I wanted to involve and incorporate these things and systems into it. So that's why we got to where we are. And I think it's really interesting. It's always like fun to look at the insight or to have insight into what mangaka or authors are wanting to do with their stories, and I really like that a lot. So yeah, let's move on to the characters. There really isn't too many here yet. So we have Yuki, we have his sister, who we don't really know what she looks like, but the Shuki that shows up at the end of the arc is probably his sister, and it's not really a spoiler because at the end of the first volume, even the manga is like, well, you probably know who this is because it's a pretty simple like deduction to make. So yeah, then you have Kyoka, the leader of the 7th Squad, Shushu, who is the 3rd in command. Or well, I mean, there's only 4 of them in the 7th squad, but she's the 3rd one in command. But she's actually, in terms of the story, the 2nd most important because she is the secondary character that approaches Yuki. Then we have Himari, who is actually the 2nd in command, and she doesn't like Yuki. She hasn't warmed up to him. And then we have Nei, who's the little girl on the team. She's the, the lolly character, but she's mostly just there to be like Yuki's little sister character. And it's really cute the way she interacts with him, and the way she is in general is pretty adorable. She's a very fun little character. But my favorite is probably Shushu. I don't know why. I really like her style and her vibe. She kind of has this like ditzy airhead kind of vibe to her, but also she's pretty low-key, pretty serious about what she's doing with her life. So it's pretty interesting. But of course, I think that generally speaking, Kyoka is probably going to be most people's favorites. So yeah, world building wise, we have the portal to Mato, Peaches, the power dynamic shift, and then Shuki, which are demons, and then humanoid Shuki, which are of course the powered up version, the meaningful version, the reason why things are happening. And this is pretty similar to Hollows, and then Visored, and what are they called, Arankar and stuff like that. So it is pretty standard like Bleach fare, right? So it's pretty normal for demon hunting manga. So yeah, in terms of artwork, I think it's really amazing. The character designs are really, really good. The poses that the characters are in are really good. The action sequences are pretty easy to read. Overall, it's really, really good, both in the action scenes, in the ecchi scenes, and in general, just everything is drawn really, really well. Overall, very good job with the artwork here. In terms of fan service, of course, there's a lot because the mangaka states that eroticism is the center of this story. So, of course, there's going to be some of that stuff here, and there's actually more than just some. There's quite a lot actually. And yeah, rankings wise, this is a 5 out of 5. It was super enjoyable. It's of course not really the best in terms of writing, but in terms of enjoyment, it is really high up there. At the time of reading this a couple weeks back, it was probably one of the better things I read that month. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about this first arc of Chain Soldiers. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you guys think about this manga, and thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.